It's been a while. It's been a while since I had to deal with any type of beyond physical issues, and yet it's still cold outside. Perhaps not cold enough to justify an ambush from one of those snow women, but it's still cold today. With everything happening around the world, my attention has not been focused much on what my guardian must deal with. Since the two sides of the veil are connected, it shouldn't surprise me that there is conflict over there as well. I'm not sure how that side of the veil deals with their situations. All I know is that my guardian dreads every single trip she must take. So much so that she curls up against me every single night, even though I do have to force her to wear something. I don't sleep very good with a skinny succubus jumping awake at any sound louder than a mouse fart. More than once I've woken up not being able to feel my leg. When she gets really scared, she wraps her tail around me and just starts squeezing like a snake. Twice, I've almost had to go to the hospital due to the pressure placed onto my muscles. Also, those damn claws. Her claws are not very long, but they are rather sharp. Her hands and feet end in claws that can retract. Think of it like a cat's claw. Although they're clearly human-shaped hands and feet, it is still odd that she can extend those claws out. When she has a bad dream, I don't sleep much that night. Yesterday, we had another uninvited guest show up at my door. This time, there was a knock at my door. A very strong and deliberate knock at my door. I didn't use much. When I looked to see who it might be knocking on the door, I couldn't see anyone. Still looking out the glass of the front door, I heard the knocking again, as well as seeing the door shake. Instantly, this made my blood run cold. Reaching for my pistol and knife, I asked, "Who is it?" There was a few moments of silence before the knocking started up again. This time, the strikes were hard enough that the wall began to shake a bit. I suddenly thanked my cousin for suggesting the door hardening kit. With that on, whatever was beating on the door would have better luck breaking through the wall. As the knocking continued, my guardian ran out to the bathroom. She asked me, "What's going on?" as her naked frame shimmered from having run freshly out of the shower. As she realized the knocking at the door, she began to shake in fear a bit. She looked at the door and yelled, "Either announce yourself or fuck off." With that, the knocking stopped. I looked at my guardian, and she looked as confused as I was. Though before I could ask her what she thought, the door was broken clean off its hinges as though someone had used an explosive charge to open it. We were both flung back to the far wall where we landed in a heap. Looking up, I could see a large entity entering the house. Through dazed eyes, I pulled up my pistol and fired into the doorway in an attempt to force it back. That is when something hit the ground outside the door. Laying on the ground was the creature of some sort. I was busy trying to get my feet, so I didn't get a good look at first. It was clearly some sort of demon, with wings that large especially. I know from experience that the more powerful the demon, the bigger the wings. This one seemed to have another, but much smaller pair up higher in its back. That was when my guardian began to freak out. She rolled the creature over, exposing its naked form, and immediately stared to see if it was all right. To my shock and horror, I had just shot my guardian's older sister. She was lucky. Out of the 4 bullets I fired, only 2 hit her. One was a grazing shot in her leg, while the other hit her in the torso. With the succubus' ability to heal, I just had to get the bullet out of her and she would be fine. However, that was far easier said than done. Try performing surgery on someone while they're trying desperately to hold still and failing miserably. It took a right hook to her face before I could work, knocking her cold. She would have to wait in the guest room while her injuries healed. It was dangerous enough to have one succubus in the house, but one strong enough to blow off a door like that? I had planned on showering before making lunch, but that was out the window, or door. Taking a deep breath, I got all my tools and got ready to remount the door. I would need a new door frame, but getting it back in place would have to do for now. If someone asks, I would just tell them, "It was a wild night. Don't ask." That usually gets people to back off and not ask too many questions. Thankfully, my guardian said she would handle lunch, and I could finally clean up. Even as I headed towards the shower, I was wondering, with two succubi in the house, would I ever get a shower without interruption? Many times as I'm showering, my guardian would walk in because she forgot something. It got to the point where she insisted on a clear shower curtain. I humored her because it was the cheapest one available anyway. Now, as I'm just starting to finish up, I see a very tall, very curvaceous winged creature looking at me through the semi-clear plastic. I ask her, "What do you want?" Which, of course, I got no response. Although I did see, as she moved forward, push her ample breasts into the plastic. Looking away, I rinsed myself off and reached for the fixture to turn off the shower. "Are you going to just stand there?" I asked. All she did was push her body harder against the shower curtain, to the point she was beginning to step into the shower stall itself. Shaking my head, I turned on the shower hose, cranked up the cold water, yanked the curtain back to the side, and began to soak her down. She stumbled back to the ground where I sprayed her for a few more seconds, and as she looked up to me, I firmly told her to cool off. Before turning off the water, I grabbed my towel and headed towards the closet for some fresh clothes. As she began to get to her feet, I grabbed another towel from the linen closet and tossed it to her. It partially unfolded and landed on her head, right between her horns. I chuckled at the sight for a moment before leaving to get dressed. After getting dressed, we all sat down for lunch, and this is where I got the reason she was here, and it was worse than I thought. Due to the fighting on the other side, there was a good possibility of demons running short on energy within the next year. The main energy that fuels them has been disrupted and can't be cultivated, so they say, correctly. I began to see their issue. Because of this, the demons that have been leaving everyone alone will become desperate for energy. This means they will have to go back to the old ways. When I asked what they meant by the old ways, where I was treated to a very long story about how demons of different types would cross over to get their energies to sustain themselves. This could be in the form of physical energy, sexual energy, depression is an energy as well, though a few decide to go more direct route and feed on flesh and blood. A succubus or incubus can get what they need over a year from a single sexual encounter. Vampires, werewolves, and others like them get their energies from consuming flesh. Thankfully, they don't need much as people think. Case in point, a vampire only needs to feed once every few years, sometimes a decade, if they get a full meal. The kicker is that a full meal for them will result in someone becoming a vampire or just straight up dead. A very hungry one that doesn't know how to feed correctly will definitely kill their victim. I already knew how these creatures gained their energy from people, so that didn't make me worry. What puckered my asshole was the number they were talking about. The numbers were well into the millions. I asked them if there was any way to stop them, and which both of them chuckled at that idea. Though they did calm down, letting me know that many of the demons would either be taken out by angels or not be able to cross over due to lack of energy. Thinking about it, it all made sense. It does take a good amount of spiritual energy to pass back and forth, so many of the weaker ones would kind of just be stuck. That is, unless someone performs a summoning. This made me chuckle since humans have a remarkable ability to summon demons. Even subconsciously, that is, like when my nephew summoned our guardian in his sleep. Which led me to ask how the hell she was strong enough to break down my front door. As it turns out, this succubus was such a high-level demon that she must hide wherever she is summoned into the physical realm. If she stays too long, she will have angel teams right after her. Kind of like a video game, though. If the angels find her, they'll send her back, but she'll lose all the progress she has made. If that happens, anyone that holds a grudge against her will take revenge, and for a succubus, that means they will be taken forcefully a lot and repeatedly. Though this turned my gut into a pretzel, so I offered her to stay, provided that she follows the rules I set forth. With a seductive smile, she agreed, but it faded when I told her she was not to have any intercourse with anyone while they were in this house, unless they expressly confirmed their desire to her. From a succubus, this was like putting a heavy meat eater on a vegetarian diet, though she relaxed a little when her sister told her that she had to deal with the same rules. Also, there was no use of her powers in or around the house unless it was for self-preservation. This rule was easier for her to deal with, though when I told her she needs to look human as much as possible, she rolled her eyes as hard as she possibly could. Even though she was able to change in under a minute, I still had to say, "You need clothes too." As she was led into the other room by my guardian, I got a good look at her human form. I know a few guys would cold cock their own mothers just to have an hour or two with something that good looking. Even though she was almost my height, she was filled out in all the right places and thin in all the others. Having two of these succubus here is going to be tough, though not as difficult as what I see coming.